Don't worry, it's just a warning. You folks are always in such a hurry.
Is there anything else, officer?
The blue and red lights fractured the rain into shards of color, flashing across the slick asphalt like warning signals from another world. Marsha Ellison's hands rested on the steering wheel, steady, deliberate, visible. Her government ID sat beside her purse on the passenger seat, face up, its golden seal glinting faintly in the storm. The officer hadn't even looked at it. "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am." His voice cut through the rainfall, casual, commanding, practiced in its contempt. He was young, barely 30, uniform crisp, badge polished to mirror perfection. His name tag read J. Mercer. Marcia rolled down the window. "Officer, I'd appreciate," I said, "step out." His flashlight sliced across her face, her skin lingering like judgment. The cars behind honked, their headlights catching the sheen of her tailored coat. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled like slow applause. She opened the door and stepped out, rain plastering her curls to her temples. He smirked. "What's a lady like you driving a car like this, huh?" She didn't answer, her throat locked around words too sharp to release. He reached for her bag, flipped it open, and the gold badge caught his light again. He squinted, then laughed a short, careless sound. "What's this, a fake?" She met his eyes. Calm now, almost cold. "That's a federal credential." He stopped smiling. The rain filled the silence between them, each drop a clock tick before collapse. His radio crackled. "Unit 24. You've got a federal alert, possible ID on Judge Ellison." The smirk faltered. His hand hovered near his belt. The realization hit him an instant too late. Marcia's voice was barely above the storm, but it cut clean. "You just made a career-ending mistake." And then silence. The sirens behind her grew louder. Rain streaked down the windshield, turning the city's sodium lights into liquid fire. Marcia Ellison's sedan idled at the shoulder, engine low, hazard lights pulsing. Her pulse matched the rhythm, steady, deliberate. She'd been pulled over 3 times in her life. This time felt different. The flashlight beam hit her window before the knock. Sharp, 2 taps, license and registration. She lowered the glass halfway. "Officer, may I ask the reason for the stop?" The man leaned down, breath clouding the wet air. His uniform was immaculate, his eyes dismissive. "You didn't signal before changing lanes." She had, but she didn't argue. She handed over her license. "You'll find my registration in the glove compartment." Slowly, he said. Her fingers moved with surgical precision. Inside, her mind recited judicial procedure, like prayer. "Stay calm, stay visible, speak clearly." He shone his light inside, pausing on the folder embossed with the Department of Justice seal. "What's this?" "Work documents," she said. "You, some kind of lawyer?" His tone carried a sneer wrapped in curiosity. She met his eyes. "Federal judge," a laugh short, disbelieving. "Yeah, and I'm the president." He handed back her license, then stopped halfway, as though reconsidering. "Step out of the car, Your Honor." She hesitated. "Is that necessary?" His smile widened. "Unless you want this to go differently." The world narrowed to the sound of rain and the faint hum of engines passing in the distance. She opened the door. The pavement soaked her shoes instantly. "Hands where I can see them." "I'm complying," she said quietly. "Sure you are." He circled her car, inspecting it like a predator evaluating prey. "Nice ride. Government paying you well, huh?" No response. Her silence infuriated him more than any word could. He tapped the badge on his chest. "You think your job puts you above the law? I think the law puts us both beneath it," she replied. For a moment, his face flickered something like shame, quickly buried. Then the headlights of another car appeared. A bystander's phone camera glinted in the dark. Mercer straightened. "Ma'am, I'm going to check your bag. You have no probable cause." He ignored her, opened the door, and rifled through the seat. The gold seal of her federal ID caught the light. He froze. "What's this?" "You already know." He turned it over, disbelief turning to mockery. "A fake credential. That's obstruction right there." She inhaled sharply. "You're making a mistake." He laughed, the sound brittle under the rain. "What are you gonna do? Judge me?" A voice shouted from the road. "Hey, that's Judge Ellison. I recognize her." Mercer's hand hovered over his holster. The camera phone kept recording. Marcia's voice was level now, each word honed by years on the bench. "Officer Mercer, consider this your notice. You are currently detaining a federal judge without cause." Static erupted from his radio. "Unit 24, hold your position. Repeat, Hold Judge Ellison's ID just confirmed. He froze, the arrogance drained from his face, replaced by something raw fear. Marcia didn't move, didn't gloat, just stood beneath the rain, her face impassive, her eyes hollow with a grief too old to name. Ma'am, he began. She cut him off softly. Don't speak, you've already said enough. The flashing lights from the backup units washed across his uniform, and in that glare, he looked small, another man caught between power and ruin. Marcia turned toward the cameras now gathering on the shoulder. Officer Mercer, she said, not looking back. The law records everything. Thunder rolled, somewhere behind her. Mercer's voice broke into the radio, desperate, stammering. The rain swallowed it whole. By dawn, the video had already been seen 1,000,000 times. The clip lasted 2 minutes and 54 seconds. Rain, flashing lights, a woman's calm voice under pressure. Then the moment, a single line. You just made a career-ending mistake. That line had become the internet's obsession. News tickers looped it every hour. Hashtags climbed into trending spots. Hashtag Judge Ellison, hashtag Highway Stop, hash Justice in the Rain. In her townhouse kitchen, Marcia Ellison sat at the counter, phone face down. The morning news murmured behind her, anchors rehearsing outrage. A commentator said she'd handled it with grace. Another questioned if she had provoked the officer by identifying herself. Her husband, David, stood by the coffee machine, jaw tight. They're spinning it already. I expected as much. You shouldn't have to expect it. She didn't answer. Steam rose from her cup, ghosting the air. The silence between them had become a kind of armorthy, heavy, familiar. The phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She ignored it. Then another buzz. Then 5 in a row. Colleagues, probably, or reporters, David said quietly. They're calling it the rain stop. Marcia let out a dry laugh. Everything's a headline now. He turned up the volume. The anchor's tone shifted. Sources say Officer Jacob Mercer has been placed on temporary administrative leave pending investigation. The department has declined further comment. David looked at her. They're protecting him. They're protecting themselves. He crossed his arms. You should speak publicly. Make them see. Her gaze stayed on the mug. Judges don't give statements. We give rulings. That rule wasn't made for this. She finally looked up. Every rule was made by someone who thought they'd never need it tested. For a moment, he had no reply. The rain outside had stopped, leaving the streets washed clean but raw. Her phone lit again. This time, a name she couldn't ignore. Chief Justice Harland. She answered. Good morning, sir, Judge Ellison. The man's voice was controlled, rehearsed. You're all over the networks. I hope you're staying calm. I am. That's good. Listen, we're convening an emergency advisory later today. Some of the press are pushing for your comment. Best to keep silent. Let the department handle it. Handle it how? A pause. Quietly. Her throat tightened. I see. And, Marcia, he added softly, try not to make this political. You know how it looks when we react. She closed her eyes. Understood. The line clicked dead. David watched her set the phone down. He told you to be quiet, didn't he? She didn't answer. The screen now glowed with a dozen missed calls, a storm of notifications. One headline stood out. Federal judge humiliated during traffic stop. Officer unrepentant. Marcia tapped it open. The clip played again. Mercer's smirk, her composure, the moment recognition hit him. Then the freeze frame, her face in the rain, calm, unflinching. The comment section beneath was a battlefield. She pulled rank. That cop should be fired. Race card again. This woman is a hero. She closed the app. Everyone's decided who I am, she murmured. David exhaled. Then tell them yourself. But she couldn't. Not yet. Every word she spoke could become evidence against her, against the court, against the system she'd sworn to uphold. Instead, she went to her study. The walls were lined with law books and framed commendations. She sat at the desk and stared at the blank legal pad. The silence felt heavier than Mercer's flashlight glare had been. A soft chime from her laptop, an email subject line, Ethics Inquiry Request. She opened it. The words hit like ice. Judge Ellison, please prepare a brief written statement detailing your conduct during the incident of October 27, including any remarks made that may be construed as threatening or prejudicial toward law enforcement. She reread the sentence twice. Then once more. They were already investigating her. David appeared in the doorway. Marcia, she didn't look up. Internal affairs moves fast when it's convenient. You can fight this. Her pen scratched across the pad. I intend to. That night, as the nation argued online, The video played on loop in the precinct break room. Mercer sat alone at the corner table, staring at the screen. His friends avoided his gaze. The captain's voice echoed from his office. "We'll spin it, Jake. You'll be fine. Just stay quiet." But Mercer's hands trembled. The rain from last night still clung to him somehow. Sound, its judgment, its silence, somewhere in the city. Judge Ellison wrote her first line of defense. It wasn't anger. It wasn't sorrow. It was fact, measured and sharp as glass. At 8:42 p.m., Officer Mercer initiated a traffic stop without probable cause. At 8:46, he violated federal procedure by searching my personal effects. I responded within the limits of judicial conduct. She underlined the last sentence, then set down the pen. Outside, the news vans began circling her street. Tomorrow, she knew, would not be quieter. The conference room smelled faintly of old coffee and disinfectant, sterile-controlled, intentionally neutral. A row of fluorescent lights hummed overhead, flattening color and emotion alike. Judge Marcia Ellison sat at the center of the table, flanked by two ethics officers in gray suits. Across from her, 3 members of the Judicial Review Committee whispered among themselves. The air carried the dry murmur of bureaucracy at work. Technical, impersonal. Judge Ellison, the chairwoman, began, adjusting her glasses. "Thank you for meeting with us so promptly." Marcia folded her hands. "I didn't realize there was a choice." A flicker of discomfort crossed the woman's face. "We're merely ensuring transparency. Given the media attention, the Department of Justice wishes to confirm that you maintained proper judicial decorum during the incident, by not defending myself, by not escalating." Marcia leaned back slightly. "You've seen the footage. Which part appears as—" No answer. Pages rustled. One man cleared his throat. "Your statement, career-ending mistake, has raised concern that you may have issued a threat." It was an observation. Another voice, male, smooth. "Understand, Judge Ellison. We're not questioning your integrity. We're managing perception, optics." She smiled faintly, without humor. "Optics are how injustice disguises itself." Silence. Pens clicked. The chairwoman looked down, unwilling to meet her gaze. Marcia's voice softened, not with weakness, but control. "If the committee's concern is judicial impartiality, I'll remind you bias was not mine." After a long pause, the chairwoman said, "You'll receive a formal memo outlining next steps. Until then, refrain from media engagement." Understood. The session adjourned. Chairs scraped back. Politeness folded around discomfort. Outside, in the corridor, a clerk caught her arm. "Judge Ellison, for what it's worth, I saw the video. You were right to stand firm." Marcia nodded once, her eyes steady. "Then don't just say it, remember it." At the same hour across town, Officer Mercer sat in a smaller, darker room. Internal affairs had a different tone, here less neutral, more defensive. His captain sat beside him, thick folder in hand, face carved from fatigue. "Jake," the captain said, "this is damage control. You say the wrong thing, you're done." Mercer's jaw clenched. "I didn't know who she was." "That's not the issue. You should have known." Across the table, an IA investigator pressed record. "Officer Mercer, describe the encounter in your own words." Mercer swallowed. "Routine stop. The suspecta, the driver, didn't signal. I asked her to step out. She was uncooperative." "Uncooperative? How?" "She questioned my orders." The investigator's pen scratched. "You understand citizens are allowed to ask why they're being stopped." Mercer hesitated. "She had an attitude." "That's not a crime." Mercer's captain interjected quickly. He was under stress. Long shift, bad weather. The investigator cut him off. "We've reviewed the body." She was calm. "You, officer, were not." Mercer's face reddened. "Look, I didn't mean anything racial. I just did my job." The investigator leaned forward. "Your record shows 2 prior complaints for inappropriate language during stops. Both dismissed. That was years ago, and this one went viral." The captain sighed, rubbing his temples. "Jake, they'll suspend you a few weeks. Maybe training, maybe reassignment. Just keep your head down." Mercer stared at the tabletop. "She could have ruined me with a word. Didn't even need to raise her voice." The investigator paused. "That's the point." That evening, Marcia drove home in silence. The radio offered nothing but static and commentary. She passed the precinct where Mercer still sat inside. The irony wasn't lost on her. The same blue lights that once symbolized order now looked like interrogation lamps. At home, David waited with takeout containers untouched. Their daughter Naomi sat at the table, scrolling through her phone. "Mom," Naomi said, Everyone at school saw the video. Marcia froze. Everyone. Some said you were amazing. Some said you pulled rank. One teacher told me, your mom's brave. Naomi's lip trembled. Another said, tell her to stay in her lane. David muttered, I'll handle that, teacher. Marcia shook her head. No. We don't retaliate. Naomi frowned. But they humiliated you. Marcia knelt beside her. And that's how they win if we start fighting on their terms. Naomi's eyes brimmed. Then what do we do? Marcia's answer came slowly, with the weight of centuries behind it. We make the truth undeniable. Outside, another news van idled on their street, engine humming like a threat. Marcia closed the curtains. Tomorrow, she would be summoned again by the third morning. The city was divided into two camps, those who believed Judge Ellison had been profiled and humiliated, and those who believed she had provoked a good officer doing his job. Television anchors, social media influencers, even pastors, everyone had an opinion. Marcia watched the news in silence as her own image appeared again. Frozen, mid-blink, the word defiant, emblazoned beneath. A commentator leaned toward the camera. Some viewers say Judge Ellison's tone was confrontational. Was this about race or about ego? Her husband muttered, they turn everything into entertainment. Marcia replied softly, entertainment has better ethics. The phone rang. David checked the caller ID. Union lawyer. For the officer, she didn't react. He switched on speaker. A man's voice filled the room, smooth, controlled, P.R. polished. This is Attorney Vince Callahan, representing Officer Mercer. We want to clarify that our client deeply regrets the misunderstanding. He was unaware of Judge Ellison's position at the time and acted within department protocol. Within protocol, David snapped. He searched her car without cause. Sir, please. The situation was tense, raining, low visibility. Marcia interrupted. Your client violated the Fourth Amendment and public decency in one act. Judge Ellison, Callahan said, tone tightening, with respect. The court of public opinion isn't the law. No, she said, but it shapes it. He paused. We'll be issuing a public statement later today. It would be best if you refrain from comment, for mutual de-escalation. The line clicked dead. David exhaled sharply. They're baiting you. I know. They're painting him as the victim now. Look, he pointed to the television, where Callahan now appeared live, saying, Officer Mercer made an honest mistake. No malice, just a human error magnified by politics. Marcia muted the screen. A human error that only happens to certain humans. Later that day, her assistant forwarded an invitation. A primetime talk show wanted her perspective. They offered to send a car. She deleted the email without replying. Then, another message arrived, this one from a senator she'd once met at a judicial conference. Marcia, this is terrible. I'd like to reference your situation in my public safety bill proposal. You'd be helping reform. She read it twice, lips pressed thin. Reform was the currency of those who'd never been deformed by the system. She closed her laptop. Across town, in a cramped office layered with tobacco and paperwork, Officer Mercer rehearsed his apology statement. The camera light blinked red. Callahan stood behind it, coaching. Keep your voice low, calm, look straight into the lens. Say you're sorry for any distress caused. Mercer swallowed. Even if I'm not, Callahan sighed. This isn't about sincerity. It's optics. Mercer adjusted his collar. She looked at me like I was beneath her. Callahan leaned forward. She's a federal judge. That's not personal, it's hierarchy. Mercer scowled. She wanted me humiliated. No, the internet wanted that. You gave it to them. He looked away, jaw set. They'll forget in a week. Callahan didn't answer. He knew better. That at sunset, Marcia attended a closed-door meeting at the courthouse. The Chief Judge, Harland, and two senior justices waited inside. Marcia. Harland began. The department issued an official apology this afternoon. You might consider accepting it publicly. It'll calm the waters. Calm whose waters? The nation's, he said, tone diplomatic. You're a symbol now. Symbols are volatile. She studied him. You mean dangerous. I mean influential. Marcia stood straighter. Influence without truth is propaganda. Then give them something else to believe in. Her silence carried more weight than his words. That night, she found Naomi on the couch scrolling through comments. Mom, they're saying you used your title to intimidate him. Marcia took the phone gently. The screen was full of talking heads and edited clips. Don't read these. Why? It's about you. It's not about me. It's about what people need me to represent. so they don't confront themselves. Naomi frowned. That's not fair. It's not supposed to be. She switched off the phone. The room dimmed, quiet except for the hum of the fridge and the faint echo of the TV next door. Mom, Naomi whispered, why don't you tell them what really happened? Marcia hesitated, then said, because truth doesn't win by shouting. It wins by outlasting the noise. The following morning, the official narrative crystallized. Mercer's apology aired on every channel. His voice contrite, his uniform freshly pressed, his words rehearsed. I deeply regret the misunderstanding. I hold utmost respect for Judge Ellison and for all citizens I serve. The image of humility. The anchor smiled afterward, a powerful act of accountability. Marcia turned off the TV mid-sentence. Accountability. The word had been emptied of meaning. She walked to her study, opened her laptop, and began typing out a statement. But a memorandum, addressed to the Office of Civil Rights. The incident on October 27 demonstrates a recurring failure in local enforcement training protocols. This is not a personnel error. It is a pattern. Her fingers paused above the keys, then continued. I request formal review of Officer Mercer's prior complaints, currently sealed under departmental privilege. David appeared at the doorway. You're going after the system, aren't you? Marcia didn't look up. I'm documenting it. Truth needs paperwork. He crossed his arms. They'll call it revenge. She met his eyes. Let them. The difference between vengeance and record-keeping is just who signs the file. The keyboard clicked steadily under her hands, each keystroke a quiet act of defiance. Outside, the city glowed with headlines and sound, but inside, in the soft lamplight of her study, Judge Marcia Ellison began to build something the spin couldn't touch. Evidence. The hearing room was built to look impartial. Gray carpet, glass walls, no shadows. Yet the air carried the quiet charge of accusation. Cameras were barred, but reporters waited outside like wolves behind glass. At the center table sat Judge Marcia Ellison, posture exact, face unreadable. Across from her, Officer Jacob Mercer, now in civilian clothes, his uniform retired for administrative purposes. His lawyer, Callahan, whispered something rehearsed into his ear. At the front, the panel of 3 review board members adjusted microphones. The chair, a woman with practiced neutrality, said, this proceeding concerns conduct unbecoming of both a federal officer and a member of law enforcement during an incident on October 27. Testimonies will be recorded for federal record. The room hummed with low, electric quiet. Officer Mercer, the chair began, state your version of events. Mercer cleared his throat, eyes darting between the panel and Marcia. That night was raining hard. I saw a vehicle drift between lanes. Standard traffic stop. I didn't realize who I was stopping. I followed procedure. When I discovered her identity, I complied immediately. Callahan nodded subtly beside him. The chair asked, did you at any point raise your voice, threaten, or search without consent? Mercer hesitated. No, ma'am. A low shuffle of papers. The chair gestured to a staffer. Play the body cam footage. Timestamp 8:44. The video filled the room with the sound of rain and power imbalance. Mercer's voice echoed from the speaker, sharp, commanding, saturated with contempt. Step out of the car, ma'am. You think your job puts you above the law. Then silence. The next line came like a knife. You just made a career-ending mistake. The video ended. Mercer's lawyer spoke quickly. That line, Your Honors, demonstrates the confrontational tone my client faced. He was provoked by authority. He misjudged. Yes, but he was under duress. Marcia lifted her chin slightly. May I respond? The chair nodded. Her voice was calm, deliberate. The duress Officer Mercer refers to is called accountability. What he felt was disbelief that a black woman could lawfully outrank him. Callahan shifted. Objections. This is a hearing, Counselor, the chair said dryly, not a trial. Proceed, Judge. Marcia continued, eyes never leaving Mercer. I didn't escalate. I identified myself. He laughed. He searched my car. He dismissed my credentials. This isn't conjecture. It's recorded. The male panelist interjected. Judge Ellison, in fairness, your remark, career-ending mistake, could be perceived as intimidating. Marcia turned toward him, tone unflinching. If the truth threatens a career, it's not intimidation, it's exposure. The room stilled. Even Mercer's lawyer didn't breathe. The chair asked quietly, what outcome do you seek from this review? Marcia paused. Justice isn't personal, it's procedural. I'm here to make sure procedure matters equally. Mercer finally spoke, his voice hoarse. I didn't mean to disrespect you. You did, she said. evenly. But meaning isn't the metric. Consequence is. He looked down. The chair glanced at her notes. Officer Mercer, is it true your record includes 2 prior complaints for racial profiling? Callahan leaned forward. Both dismissed by the department. Dismissed, Marcia said softly. Doesn't mean disproven. The chair looked at her. Do you have evidence of misconduct beyond your own experience? Marcia opened the folder before her. Inside were photocopied memos, emails leaked to her by an unnamed source, department correspondences, internal jokes about profiling risks, mentions of quotas, records sealed under personnel protection. The panel leaned forward. One whispered, "Is this verified?" Marcia replied, "The system verifies itself when forced to." Callahan stood. "This is irregular. These materials weren't disclosed." The chair raised a hand. "Sit down, counselor." The room thickened with tension. Mercer's face had drained of color. He whispered, "Where'd you get those?" Marcia didn't answer. When the session adjourned for recess, the hallway erupted with murmurs. Staffers typed frantically. Someone whispered, "She just exposed the precinct's emails." Outside, cameras flared through the glass like lightning. Harland, the Chief Justice, approached her quietly. "Marcia, what did you just do?" She met his gaze. "I gave them facts. Isn't that our job? You blindsided an entire department. They blinded themselves." He sighed. "You realize this will go federal now. I'm counting on it." Inside the precinct, hours later, Mercer sat alone, watching his lawyer pace. "You didn't tell me there were emails," Callahan snapped. "I didn't know." Callahan threw his hands up. "You should have known. This isn't about one mistake anymore, it's about your department's culture," Mercer muttered. "They'll hang me to save themselves." Callahan's silence was confirmation. Back at home, Marcia closed her laptop slowly. The headlines were already changing. Judge produces internal memos in racism hearing. Ellison turns tables on police department. David appeared in the doorway. "You dropped a bomb." Marcia took off her glasses. "No. I just told the truth in public, where it can't be edited." He studied her face. "You look tired. Justice always does." She looked out the window, where the rain had started again soft this time, washing the world clean and thin. Hesitant streaks. Somewhere across town, Officer Mercer sat in silence, waiting for the official decision that would determine his future, and for the first time, he understood what powerlessness felt like. The meme hit the internet at 6:47 a.m. It showed a still from the highway, video Marcia standing in the rain, eyes steady, mouth set next to a photoshopped caption, "Smile, Your Honor. We own the roads." By noon, it had 10,000 shares. By evening, it had crossed into mainstream media. Marcia's clerks avoided eye contact in the courthouse hallways. The bailiff looked at her as if afraid to be seen, offering sympathy. Only Naomi, at home, showed the raw reaction. Everyone else hid. "They're mocking you." Naomi slammed her phone on the table. "This is bullying, Mom. You can't just ignore it." Marcia closed the laptop where she'd been reviewing case files. "Ignoring it is how I stay employed." David, watching from the kitchen, said, "You can't keep pretending you're made of marble." "I'm made of composure," Marcia said. "That's the only armor I'm allowed." Naomi's voice cracked. "You're not armor, you're my mother." Marcia looked at her daughter. The girl's eyes were wet, furious, trembling with the helpless rage of someone too young to understand that survival sometimes looks like silence. The phone rang again, an unfamiliar number. "Officials," Marcia answered. "Judge Ellison, this is Chief Randall of Metro PD. I think we should meet." Her tone chilled. "Regarding what? The situation's getting out of hand. We'd rather resolve this internally than through further escalation." "I'm not negotiating optics." "It's not about optics, ma'am. It's about stability. For the city. For all of us." "Then you'll understand why I want it on record." A pause. "Judge, off the record is safer for everyone." Marcia ended the call. "Tell David I'll be late," she told Naomi. The police headquarters smelled of wax and fatigue. Chief Randall's office was dimly lit, blinds half drawn. On his desk sat a newspaper folded to the headline, "Ellison, Hearing Sparks Division." He rose as she entered. "Judge, thank you for coming." "Let's skip courtesy," she said. "Why am I here?" He gestured toward a chair. She didn't sit. "Your situation's tearing through the ranks," he said. "Morale is collapsing." Mercer's file opened a floodgate. Complaints, leaked memos, everyone covering their backs. "Good," she said. He blinked. "Good accountability was always supposed to be contagious." He sighed. "You're making enemies." I had them before you called. He leaned forward. You think you're winning this. The city's turning you into a symbol. Symbols don't survive politics. Marcia stepped closer, her voice low. You think I care about survival. I care about truth recorded in ink. He hesitated. You could have settled this quietly. Mercer gone, an apology, a ceremony. Instead, you went federal. Because you would have buried him like the others. Something broke in his expression, weariness, guilt, or just professional despair. You don't understand what it's like managing a department this size. I understand exactly. You built a system where bias is procedure and decency is bad for morale. His voice hardened. Be careful, Judge. You're crossing from justice into crusade. She met his eyes, cold and steady. They only call it a crusade when a woman stops asking nicely. Silence pressed against the walls. He sank back into his chair, exhaling. What do you want? An admission, she said. Public, written, undeniable. He rubbed his forehead. That'll destroy us. She turned to leave. Then you know how it feels. That night, Naomi refused dinner. She sat on her bed, laptop open, scrolling through hateful comments. Marcia stood at the doorway. Naomi, stop reading that. Her daughter's voice was small. They say you only care about being right. They say you're angry. I am angry. Naomi looked up. Then why do you hide it? Marcia sat beside her. Because they expect it. The minute I show anger, they stop listening and start diagnosing. Naomi frowned. Then what do you show? Control. Because they can't stand to see it in someone who looks like me. The words hung heavy. Naomi leaned against her, silent. Downstairs, David watched the evening news. A headline rolled across the ticker. Police emails leak, confirm cover-up Chief Randall under review. He called up the stairs. Marcia, it's happening. She descended slowly, eyes on the screen. The anchor spoke. Anonymous sources have released documents proving deliberate suppression of prior complaints against Officer Mercer. The Justice Department has announced a full-scale audit of Metro PD. David turned to her. Did you? I didn't leak anything, she said, but truth finds its own exits. He grinned, despite himself. You realized this could end careers. Her face remained calm. Careers end. Legacies remain. Hours later, in the police headquarters, Chief Randall stared at his monitor, the leaked files glowing like confession. He knew what came next. Hearings, firings, public outrage. Mercer called him from a blocked number. Chief, they're tearing me apart online. Randall's voice was hollow. We're all being torn apart, son. Mercer's breathing shook through the line. You said it would blow over. It's blowing up. Randall hung up without another word. Bafta in her study. Marcia stood by the window. Rain again, faint but relentless, streaking across glass like memory. She whispered to herself, not prayer, not triumph, just the plain recitation of fact. Consequence is not revenge, it's equilibrium. Behind her, David placed a hand on her shoulder. They'll come for you next. I know, and you're not afraid. Of course I am, she said. But fear only matters when silence follows it. The rain thickened, and in the distance, thunder rumbled over a city learning to slowly what justice sounds like when it refuses to whisper. By morning, the city no longer whispered. It shouted. News vans lined the courthouse steps, cables tangled like veins across the pavement. Commentators called it the reckoning of Metro. Every channel replayed the same montage. Marcia's face under gray rain, Chief Randall's resignation, and Mercer leaving his home in silence, jacket over his head. Inside her chambers, Marcia watched it all on mute. The hum of fluorescent lights sounded louder than the chaos outside. Her clerk entered, hesitant. Judge, the Attorney General's office called. They're launching a joint investigation. They want your testimony as the initiating party. Marcia nodded. Set the date. The clerk hesitated. They also mentioned protective detail. I don't need one. With respect, Mamudu. The hearing chamber 3 days later was national television, not civic order. The panel had changed federal oversight this time, uniforms replaced by suits. Cameras allowed. Marcia took her seat at the witness table. Flashbulbs crackled like small explosions. Across from her, a new prosecutor read the case file. Judge Ellison, thank you for your cooperation. We'll proceed under oath. This inquiry concerns alleged systemic bias within Metro PD, as evidenced by recent leaks, recordings, and documented misconduct. I understand. Your statement, please. She drew a breath. On October 27, I was stopped by an officer who saw a stereotype, not a citizen. He assumed authority was his birthright. The department defended him, not the law. This isn't about one officer. It's about a structure that rewards blindness. The prosecutor asked, "Do you claim departmental complicity?" "I claim survival instinct," she said. "The institution protects itself. Bias isn't rogue, it's trained." Gasps rippled through the audience. The prosecutor pressed, "Judge, you are alleging federal-level negligence. Do you have evidence?" She gestured toward the screen behind them. Exhibit 12. The footage changed this time. Internal training clips. Officers joking about fitting the profile, laughter behind closed doors. Another clip showed Mercer receiving commendation, while a complaint memo sat unsigned in a stack. The room went still. The prosecutor lowered his notes. "How did you obtain this material?" Marcia's gaze didn't waver. Someone inside decided silence wasn't loyalty. Outside, protests grew. Signs read, "Justice wears a badge too long. We stand with Ellison." But online, another current ran beneath it, dark threads of conspiracy, slurs cloaked as opinion. Anonymous accounts called her a liar, a radical, an opportunist. At home, Naomi watched the feeds. "They're saying you staged it. I expected that, but it's everywhere." "Truth always travels slower than noise," Marcia said quietly. David turned off the TV. "They're scared. That's what this looks like." Naomi looked at him. "And what if it doesn't stop?" Marcia met her daughter's eyes. "Then they'll learn I don't stop either." 2 days later, a federal report leaked ahead of schedule. Headline: Metro PD found liable for pattern of discriminatory conduct. The summary was blunt. Multiple officers implicated. Administrative concealment confirmed. Leadership negligence established. Chief Randall's resignation letter was timestamped 5 minutes before publication. By noon, the mayor's office held an emergency press conference, effective immediately. "We are initiating a comprehensive departmental overhaul. We thank Judge Marcia Ellison for her courage in bringing these issues to light." Applause erupted, but Marcia, watching from her office, didn't smile. David entered. "You did it." "No," she said softly. "We proved it." He frowned. "Isn't that the same thing?" She looked out the window. "Proof changes laws. Justice changes people. The first is easier." Meanwhile, Mercer sat alone in his apartment, blinds shut tight. The TV replayed his own face from the hearing, ashen, silent, exposed. His phone buzzed with messages. "We warned you. You ruined us. You deserved this." He turned it off, staring at his reflection in the black screen. For the first time, he saw himself not as victim or enforcer, but as consequence. On the courthouse hallway, Marcia stepped past cameras. A young black law student stopped her, voice trembling. "Ma'am, I just wanted to say what you did. Changed everything for me." Marcia looked at her, seeing not hero worship, but recognition. "Don't thank me. Continue it." The girl nodded, eyes bright. Later that night, alone in her study, Marcia reread the decision letter. Federal Review recommends institutional reform, public apology, and oversight board inclusion. She placed it neatly in a drawer. Next to her, judicial oath. Naomi entered quietly. "Mom, yes. Do you feel better?" Marcia thought a long moment. Better isn't the word. Clearer, maybe. Naomi hesitated. "Will they ever apologize?" Marcia smiled faintly. "Institutions don't apologize. They restructure." Naomi frowned. "That's not justice." "No," Marcia said. "It's maintenance. Justice is what happens after we stop watching." Outside, the city was louder than before. Sirens, chants, reporters. Yet somewhere beneath it all was a new, quieter sound. Accountability being written, reluctantly but permanently, into record. For once, Marcia didn't flinch from the noise. She walked to the window, opened it slightly, and let the air in. The city smelled of rain and concrete and change, uncomfortable, raw, but real. David came behind her. "You think it'll last?" "Justice never lasts," she said. "It has to be repeated." He nodded, understanding the fatigue behind her steadiness. In the distance, church bells struck 9. Marcia closed her eyes and let the sound carry. The city kept talking, the world kept spinning, but in that fragile pause between thunder and applause, a single truth stood. Exposure isn't the end of power, it's the beginning of accountability. The morning after the verdict, the courthouse felt hollow, stripped of noise, emptied of ceremony. Sunlight stretched through high windows, catching dust in slow, dignified motion. Marcia Ellison walked the corridor alone, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. Every echo sounded like punctuation, an ending that refused to celebrate itself. Her office had already been half cleared. The photos from her desk, one of Naomi in her graduation robe, another of David holding their newborn son years ago, were boxed, ready for storage. A letter sat at the center of her desk, embossed with the Department of Justice seal. It wasn't a reprimand, it was an offer. She opened it once more, scanning the lines she already knew by heart. In recognition of judicial integrity and service under duress, Judge Marsha Ellison is invited to advise the Federal Oversight Committee on Procedural Equity and Officer Conduct Reform, an invitation to shape the very laws that had once failed her. Yet her hands didn't move to sign. A knock at the door. It was Harland, the Chief Justice, shoulders bent as though the building's weight had settled on him. "They want you in D.C.," he said. "This could define the next decade." Marsha looked out the window, the city skyline bruised by morning haze. "I'm tired, Harland." He nodded. "Tired means you've done the work. Tired means I've seen what the work costs." He placed a hand on the doorframe. "You've changed more than law. You changed the tone." She gave a thin smile. "Tone changes faster than hearts." "Then keep changing both." He left her there alone with sunlight, paper, and choice. Later that day, she met David and Naomi at a cafe far from downtown. No cameras, no whispers. The world still buzzed beyond the glass. News anchors dissecting outcomes, activists celebrating, critics fuming. Naomi's eyes were wary. "You're not going back to the bench, are you?" Marsha stirred her coffee. "No, I'm moving laterally." David raised an eyebrow. "To Washington?" "Eventually. First, I want to see what the city becomes without denial." Naomi frowned. "You really think it'll change?" Marsha's gaze softened. "No city changes willingly, but people inside it can." Naomi bit her lip. "You sound ... sad." "I'm realistic," Marsha said. "Justice isn't closure, it's maintenance, like sweeping a floor that keeps gathering dust." David reached across the table, his hand resting on hers. "Then maybe it's time someone else held the broom." She looked at him, exhaustion and affection woven together. Maybe. Outside, the rain had stopped for the first time in weeks. The sky, pale and tentative, felt newly washed. That evening, she walked through the precinct doors one last time. The building was under reconstruction. New policies, new leadership, a temporary humility in the air. As she entered the conference room, officers stood automatically. Some avoided her eyes, others met them with quiet respect. Chief Daniels, Randall's successor, extended a hand. "Judge Ellison, I won't waste words. You were right, we were wrong." She shook his hand. "Don't canonize me, Chief. Just do better." He nodded. "That's the plan." "Good. Then stop calling it a plan and start calling it policy." He smiled grimly. "Noted." Before leaving, she glanced at the wall where new training posters were being hung. Photos of officers listening, learning, acknowledging. It wasn't redemption, but it was a beginning. That night, she returned home to silence. Naomi was asleep. David was reading. The air was calm, almost deceptively normal. "Joe," she opened the window, letting the cool air in. Somewhere downtown, a protest chant echoed faintly. "Not angry now. Just steady, rhythmic, alive." Marsha whispered to herself, barely audible. "It's not over. It never is." David looked up from his book. "What's that?" "Nothing," she said. "Just thinking." He stood and walked to her, slipping his arm around her waist. "You think too much. It's how I stay ahead of fear." He kissed her temple. "You already outran it." She smiled faintly. "Only for now." They stood there in silence as the city exhaled around them. Distant sirens, car horns, a stray laugh cutting through the night. Weeks later, at her formal appointment in Washington, the hall was full but quiet. Cameras flashed. Polite applause followed. She signed the oath, handed the pen back, and stood before the podium. Reporters leaned forward. Her speech was brief. "Systems don't change through shame. They change through exposure. Accountability is not vengeance, it's architecture. What we build after the fall determines whether justice was real or rhetorical. I intend to build." No applause followed immediately. The silence felt like comprehension, the kind that doesn't cheer, only absorbs. Months later, an article appeared in The Atlantic. "The judge who forced the city to see itself." The writer described her as calm as a blade's edge, too honest for comfort, a necessary storm. Marsha never read it. Instead, she sat on her porch, barefoot, watching Naomi teach her younger cousins chess. Each move, deliberate, patient, Strategy with outrage. David brought her tea. You ever think about retiring for real? I'm retired from silence, she said. Everything else is temporary. He smiled. That's my wife. The sun dipped low, turning the street gold. Children laughed. A car passed, music thudding faintly. Some new generation's anthem. Marcia breathed it in, steady and full. The city had scars now, but scars were proof of healing, not defeat. Somewhere deep inside, beneath exhaustion and memory, she felt something almost foreign, peace, but not the passive kind, the kind earned by surviving truth.